Ryan, you there? All right. First off, I'd like to apologize to the general public for the tardiness of the tonight's council meeting. We had a special meeting concerning the housing element that got extended over. It was one of those things that there was a lot of discussion, and it just wasn't, we couldn't finish it in time, so we're going to start this meeting now. The regular scheduled City Council meeting and Housing Authority meeting for Tuesday, September 14th will come to order. Pursuant to the July 17, 2021 order from the County of Los Angeles Department of Public Health, face masks must be worn by all persons regardless of vaccination status. While in council chambers, temporary accommodations due to COVID. As a standing accommodation to ensure participation of those with sensitive and other risk conditions, the city will offer a nearby alternate location where individuals who desire to participate at the county meeting, council meeting, and would desire to wear masks, maintain 6 feet of social distancing, and ensure that those around them are all also similar protected regardless of vaccination status may watch the meeting. Such individuals will be allowed to remain in the area only if they comply with these requirements. To participate in oral communications, such individuals will be called, can proceed to the public speaking podium and address the city council, and are able to return to the fully masked and social distance location with minimal exposure to any unmasked individuals. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oral communications. Members of the audience are invited. Correction. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll? We have one council member that's remotely.
Councilmember Bertone.
Present.
Councilmember Ebner.
Present.
Councilmember Viana.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Weber.
Here.
Mayor Bedar.
Here.
The record will reflect all council members are in attendance.
Oral communications. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comment will not be taken during each individual agenda item, except for the public hearing items. Comments on public hearing items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to a staff or set for discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes.
Yes, I have questions for the staff once they read our report pertaining to our agenda.
No, she's going to call people up.
Okay, but I have questions prior to the staff
Okay, yeah, well, just, after she does this, then I'll ask you if you want to come up here and talk.
First speaker is George Munoz, speaking on city trees and lights.
Come up here, sir, to the podium.
Sorry, guys, we've never done this before, so.
No, most of us haven't.
Alrighty then. I just have a few bullet points here. I'm obviously one of the residents at Via Fresa. We're trying to continue putting lights in the trees. It's obviously just fun, fully understanding that they're city trees, it's not up to us. So with all due respect, just a few things that they're inconsistent in the staff report. They're a little inconsistent with what I think the facts are. So anyhow, well, the lights are amazing. First of all, there was there was a PowerPoint, but no worries. I think the report exacerbates some of the negative aspects of the situation. It says that there's an exorbitant amount of, an exorbitant amount of work involved with us getting our permits. I would disagree with that. I bet if we spoke with the city staff members, they'd probably agree that it's not an exorbitant amount of work. It does say that the cost of the permit is inconsistent with the work, but I'm like, well, charge us, find the right price point and charge us that for the permit. So that shouldn't be an issue. Sorry, I'm going a little quick here. Also, there was a comment in the staff report about residents losing sleep, and I know there's literally one resident complaining. It's not more than one resident. It's a bunch of us on the street. One guy who doesn't even live on the street is the one person complaining, so I feel like it's a little unreasonable to even to bend to the will of one person and not listen to 9 or 10 people. So, and I'll leave his name out. Doesn't even live on our street though. It mentions that someone's complaining about losing sleep, and it's just not possible. It's not, super nervous, guys. Whew. It's not possible. It's not possible. I literally have trees full of lights in front of my house, and when I'm inside, the light is undetectable. So to mention someone's sleep being lost, in the report, is a little bit outside of reality. And anyhow, that's really it. Just like I said, one neighbor's complaining, and you have 10 people right here saying, please let us do this. So we take the utmost care with the trees. We love our plants. I'm a big time plant lover, so we're super careful. We do have an arborist that came out and did a report, so maybe she can comment on that when she comes up. So I think that's about it, guys. Still have time left. So thanks for listening. Sorry I was
really quickly,
talking so fast.
that photo that was in the PowerPoint that they pulled up there after you started talking, that's, I'm assuming you,
PowerPoint, sir, that was one of the worst photos they played.
There's 22 houses on the street.
Mr. Mayor, there was a request from, I don't know which neighbor, for this PowerPoint, so this is a resident PowerPoint, so at your discretion.
It seems like it's an important issue here, so let's go ahead. It's actually the first matter on the agenda, so we'll just do it, let them play it during their public comment, their time.
So as you can see, we dictated other cities that have the same lights. I believe you have 30 seconds. Part of it. So part of his PowerPoint, we have other cities, including Hastings Ranch, Glendora, and San Marino, with each home over in San Marino is probably over $2, $3, $4 million home. Each home. Speak into the microphone, please.
Oh, yes. I'm saying that the PowerPoint demonstrates various cities that offer this. I'm just reflecting to the staff report because I believe it's a little inaccurate. We have Hastings Ranch, Pasadena. They claim, or the staff report claims that they don't allow it. I grew up there since I was 8 years old. My mom still lives on the street. Hastings Ranch actively participates in lights, trees, crossing the neighborhood on parkways. They even cross cords on sidewalks. Maybe it's unspoken. Maybe they turn the other way, or maybe the residents have permits. I personally called the 24-hour hotline with City of LA Code Desk. They do offer permits and processes to obtain inspections on public trees with lights. So there is a policy in place. We just want to keep it going. And I have questions that I would like to record and ask. Part of the staff report claims that the city, the bonita trees in our city are safe, and I would hope they're safe. I have a disabled daughter that we sit right there on the chair, 5 feet away from the tree. But part of my PowerPoint, sir, and the PowerPoint says that they're maintained. It says twice that they're maintained consistently. I have pictures from 2019 where I actually truly informed Mrs. Garwick that they're not to code and that all the boxes are left open. And I have new pictures of yesterday where it shows the boxes in the exact same position. So water's entering. I've also spoken to the neighbors. A couple of the trees don't even light up, and public entities plug in their phones to be charged. What's next? They're going to plug in their Tesla to charge. There's no provisions for, they're just open boxes. If you can continue my PowerPoint, I mean, I can go on. Each tree, there's approximately 30 trees, and if I was a building inspector, I only approved 7 of them. And I speak from experience because I'm a second generation C10. My dad was a commercial industrial electrical contractor. And so to me, in 5 minutes, I can demonstrate. We have conduits that stick up below the trees that aren't even strapped. And 6 inches away from the conduits, we have a sprinkler. And we have a metal plate that prevents a pedestrian from falling through. Look at that right there. Electricity touches metal, and you have water.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Oh, pardon me.
I think we're talking about.
Oh, no, well, I'm just establishing the point
the Christmas lights.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
and my streets are safe.
Let me finish. I appreciate your concern about the trees, and I will.
Yes, because I live there and I'm a taxpayer.
Okay,
I paid for that improvement.
I understand. I certainly understand, and I will address it with the public.
And I have many more, and I have CDs of all.
Do we want to stay with the Christmas tree thing?
Yes, sir.
Please. Okay, and I'll discuss it with the staff concerning the issues that you're bringing forward.
Yes, sir. Well, I just want to state the credibility of the report. My point isn't to state the defectiveness of the trees. I'm attacking the report. The report is biased, sir. That's what I'm saying today. I don't mean to embarrass the public or funds or the mismanagement, the fact that the Public Works doesn't know how to inspect electrical. I'm just here to say that our trees are safe. We adhere to the most stringent standards over and above the city's installations. We'll pay more for permits if that's what's required. I brought an arborist, and I have an electrical engineer that's ready to Zoom right now that designs for Disney, USC. Our installation is perfectly legal within the code. But we're told we can't Zoom. But I have an electrical engineer, so our design is designed. I'm not sure what electrical engineer designs water, electricity, and metal within 6 inches of each other.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And by the way, I've been living in here for 11 years, and I came from Pasadena, and I absolutely love with all my heart the small hometown feeling of San Dimas.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Francisco Suarez on lights.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Francisco Suarez. I've lived at 2370 since 1979. I'm actually have been practicing law more than 33 years. I just don't understand why this is a big problem in regards to these lights. They are safe. There's no problems with them. It seems like there's one person that lives right in back of me that behind the house that I'm at that is the one that's complaining. Somebody, the same person that was denied a business license, and therefore he has it out for everybody, irregardless of what they do or what they say. And he's the one that's complaining about this. He complains about everything. His name is, I believe it's Sal. I just think that this is ridiculous to prevent these individuals from having a light show like they're doing during Christmas. And I think that it'd be taken away a lot of the camaraderie and the merriness of Christmas without having these lights that I'm sure that everyone knows just won one of the big award last year for having the one of the most nicest lights in San Dimas. So I think that this is a big mistake to try to stop these individuals in our community from being able to express themselves and being able to show the rest of the communities that how much we are proud of our houses, and that the lights, because they are safe, would be a travesty not to continue them, continue to have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Raymond Avila, speaking on decorative lights.
Mr. Avila, do you want to speak again, sir?
We're letting people speak more than once?
No, Mr. Avila, I can't let you speak.
Again?
No, not again.
Seconds, why do I have
No,
4 minutes?
no. Thank you very much. We heard you. We understand.
We do have the additional comment period at the end of the meeting.
Yeah,
too.
at the end of the meeting, there'll be an additional time to speak. All right?
Next speaker is Amanda Lee on multiple topics.
Amanda, is she? Oh, here she is.
Okay, long time no see. Been a little while. So I'm also here about the Christmas light, as well as another issue. I actually don't live in the area that is being impacted by the discussion tonight, and I don't have too much to add just because I haven't seen the staff report. I've looked a little bit online, but I really didn't look at it in depth. So I do look forward to the staff report just to collect that information. I know there's a lot that as residents we may not know. For example, I didn't realize we needed permits to put it in. But having also seen the information that was posted online by some of those that are affected by this directly, I just want to kind of encourage the council to consider that there are permits in place already, which in itself I think already, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't go into if it legally covers the liability, but I would assume with layman's knowledge that it would actually cover some of that liability by the person signing that permit. So I would hope that with the permit in place already and, you know, with safety standards in place, you wouldn't need to put more red tape for residents to be able to do something like this and to bring joy to their whole neighborhood. Glendora actually has a whole archway of lights in their city that 100% has the city's approval, and residents from all over drive to go to that, and they do it for all the different holidays. It's fantastic. So again, I do hope you consider that, yes, there is liability. 100% I understand that. But it does sound like residents are doing it right. They are making sure it's safe. They get the permits. They've gone through all the processes. They're not, you know, trying to wiggle their way out of things and do it one way or the other. Another concern that I had is the construction work, and I know this may not be the city's issue in itself, but I was wondering if the city could, you know, contact Goldline or the construction company Kiewit Parson in regards to adding more detour signs on 2nd Street going towards Euclid. Currently, there are no signs there. People keep turning down Acacia, which is a dead end, and then making dangerous turns back out, and then coming back on 2nd Street. So it gets a little bit confusing. With Cataracts permanently staying closed for 9 months, it would just be a little bit more helpful. And that's all I have for tonight. So thank you so much, and good luck with your meeting.
I think, Ms. Scarwick, you heard her request. Okay, thank you. Next.
Next speaker is Maria Munoz,
Ms. Munoz?
tree lights and, yeah, regarding tree lights.
Hello. So I'm the certified arborist that inspected the trees. I am an ISA certified arborist. I am track qualified. I guess that's redundant. I worked as, actually, I inventoried your trees at my previous employer. So I have observed and observed them over the past couple of years installing their lights. They've asked me to just make sure the trees are okay. And of course, I'm always happy to hug a tree. And I inspected them recently, just over this weekend. There is damage to the trees. There's concerns, but it has nothing to do with the light installation. It's city work, the root pruning that's been done. That would be my biggest concern. Although this is a concern for me as an arborist and as a risk assessor, I don't see the lights having any impact on this defect that a couple of the trees have on the block. And in addition to that, like I said, I've observed them doing it. They use a scissor lift. They're not climbing the trees. Obviously, the weight of the lights would not be a concern for a tree. I mean, trees are able to withstand inches of rain and withhold that water, which is way heavier than the weight that they're putting on. So yeah, I did a short report for them. I have a little inventory of the trees that they do decorate included in that. I've mentioned, like I said, the damage that I've observed that has been done from other work, city work, the sidewalk, the severe root pruning. And I think you guys have the report on hand. But yeah, I've observed them doing it. I've educated them on the proper care of trees and what they can and can't do, which they haven't done anything. Over the past 3 years, I see no damage that has been incurred due to the light installation. So that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Last speaker is Robert Wygan, speaking on holiday stuff.
So I'm Robert Wygan. By the way, that's a phenomenal neighborhood. I've never seen that one. I've lived here 3 years. I live over here by Exeter and elementary school. I'm a Halloween guy. Now, with them doing lights and trees, I run spider webs into trees. Am I going to have to pull a permit for that? I mean, no lighting or anything like that, but they're paying for permits, paying for the watering of the tree, the maintenance of their own yards. Why is there any real issue? I mean, if a neighbor's really losing sleep, I mean, do you guys turn them off at night at some point? I mean, I cut my Halloween stuff up at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on the weekends. You know, I do it for the kids. I grew up, my parents didn't do anything till I was a teenager because I could hang it because they didn't want to do it. Now I do it for my kids, my grandson, and everybody else. So I don't see why, if it's really only one person, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if they're if they're paying the way and you're not, why stop them if it's all permitted? That's all I really have to say about it.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Those are all the speaker cards that have been turned in.
All right. If anybody else would like to speak?
If I'm right,
Yes,
will I be able to take my mask off or leave it on?
it's fine.
Good evening, council members. My name is Sid Maksudian, and I'm the gentleman that lives above where this light issues are. This is not about me. First of all, if the council members, I know most of them, I've been diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago.
Excuse me, sir.
Listen, bud, if you're going to interrupt,
Sid, please.
then be quiet, the way I stayed quiet when you spoke.
Please.
Thank you. The issue is not the lights itself. It's the protocol of what has transpired. Originally, when this happened, about two years ago, when Mr. Patel Krishna was around, he agreed that this should not go on because the way it started, someone fumbled within the city by orally letting a couple of guys, this started with only a couple of guys, George and another guy, period. And I live on top of the hill. So the city says, you know, we fumbled it, we'll correct it, let's wait. Then the COVID hit. So we've been very patient just to get a direction from the council. You shouldn't be saying if I deny it or say I don't want. No, lights are not the problem. The safety issue is the problem and the brightness of the light at nights. Now my property
is on top of Georgia's property. I'm the only one who's affected by these lights because Sherry and the Parks and Recreation, Mr. Hector, and now I think Mr. Wasserman, they've done a fantastic report. I mean, these individuals, they think this is a game. It's not a game. When we say lights, first of all, they gave them a program to abide by. That by 10 o'clock, lights should get shut down. Guess what? Lights do not get shut down till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. They've gone out there, your inspectors, because you're very limited. You only got 1 or 2 gentlemen scouting the entire San Dimas. They prove them over and over. They do not abide by the city's regulation and the rules. That's number one. Number two, my windows are straight open to these lights. Now, if the city chooses to pass this, who am I to say no to it? But if you think that this individual group is going to abide by the guidelines and the rules that you're going to put in place, you're fooling yourself, because your city members have gone, seen that these guys are not abiding because they think everything. And third, do you guys seen the report where the individuals to decorate these trees, you got to have this big booms out there? Anyway, my time is up. I'll come back when the subject matter comes up again.
Well, the subject was, this is the only time you'll be
this
able
is
to
the
speak.
only time.
So, and we need to move on. We
got
understand.
you. No, I thought
Thank
that
you.
this was public speaking.
It is, but it's not a public hearing. This matter is not a public hearing.
I got
All right,
you.
thank
Well,
you.
whatever the time. Thank you very much.
Right, young lady?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Calderon, and I live on the street where the lights are. There is a little bit of difference of opinion there. I just want to talk, I've been a resident of San Dimas my entire life. Villa Verde swim team, Holy Name, and there was a sense of magic and a sense of community. And I left for a little bit, and when I brought my husband back, I was kind of disappointed. It didn't seem to have that same feeling. And one day, Ray came to my house. I didn't even know him, and he was my next door neighbor. And he said, "We want to put lights up." And he said, "Yes, let's do it." And all of this started with the city, and I feel like we've jumped through hoops. I mean, we use zip ties, we don't use nails, we don't use staples, we do the insurance. The amount of support that we have got from online, from surrounding cities is amazing. Some of us are teachers, and during COVID, the one thing that brought happiness for our kids was coming to our neighborhood and seeing these lights and seeing what we did. We were all standing outside our houses, meeting new neighbors, meeting new residents of San Dimas, Covina, Laverne, Glendora. It's bringing back that magic. And when we first moved back onto the street, not many people had lights. And I watched it grow on Villa Fresa all the way down, and then all the way down on Camino del Sur. We had neighbors that we didn't even know before asking us to be part of this. Just the community and the closeness that it's brought this city, or part of the city, has been amazing. And to say that we never turn off the lights, we did it, to my knowledge, one time. We forgot. We all got letters saying that if it happened again, that would be fine. We all text each other and remind each other to turn off the lights. So I'm asking you to please consider this. And I know some council members have driven by to see the lights, and we love that. We love the support. We love welcoming the neighbors and residents. There's no trash. There's no extra traffic going up towards his location. They politely, kindly go through the streets. Some park. They walk as families with hot chocolate. They stop to talk to all of us on our houses. It's just a sense of camaraderie. And I would just hate to see it leave, because that's what's bringing, and that's what San Dimas is about camaraderie, community, and building each other up. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
Good evening. My name is Kathy Barbata, also a resident on Villa Fresa. We've lived there for 2 years, been residents of San Dimas for over 12, and I'm just going to follow up with Kat's camaraderie and the community spirit. We had 100% participation on that street. 22 homes and all 100% participated was included. And we all followed the safety and regulations. I understand that not everybody got permits according to the safety report, but there is also a lot of inconsistencies on that report as well. It was very one-sided. They didn't know of the background of some of the contractors, the licenses and certifications that some of us residents hold in order to do those lights. And as the arborist had also confirmed, that we have done it as per safety and all regulations and requirements that we do. We pay for it. We get extra homeowners insurance to protect the liability on us and the city, because that's also a concern that was there. And it's just the sense of community. We do have residents. We had over 249 comments just on the photos on Facebook and Instagram alone. That's just on my alone. I'm sure Kat, I noticed on some of her San Dimas Buzz and other things, have also received hundreds, not just tens or 20s, hundreds of comments as well. So there is a huge participation and a huge community spirit between that goes through our neighboring our schools, our teachers, our families, our friends. They do drive. It's not as big as like Newport Beach or anything like that, but people do come in from different areas because they know of the street. We're very easy on and off of that street, of the freeway, so they do come in and like Kat said, do visit with the neighboring cities. We come out, we talk to people, and it does bring a sense of holiday spirit and enjoyment for the community. So I really hope that you guys consider this as you discuss this matter, and maybe review some of those research reports are on there, because it does have a little inconsistencies, especially with Claremont and as far as Thoroughbred and Rancho Cucamonga as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay, anyone else have anything to speak on just oral communications, because this is just the oral communication period. Yes, ma'am. Could you please? Come up to the mic, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On Arrow Highway, when you come out of Acacia to Arrow and you make, you go out and you go shopping, and then you come back down on Arrow to turn left onto Acacia, there's a blind spot. I'm afraid an accident's going to happen someday, and I wish the city would come and cut some of those hedges. I have fear of like a bad accident happening on Arrow, turning onto Acacia, you know.
Thank you. Our Public Works lady is right there, and she'll talk to you.
Okay.
From what direction on Arrow Highway?
Well, when you're coming off of Acacia, and you come back down Arrow, there's a blind spot.
Should be going eastbound.
Oh,
Should be going eastbound.
eastbound?
Eastbound to north. All right, we're going to close the oral communications, and we're going to move to item 1, which I think we already discussed. Okay, discussion and direction to establishing the policy on private decorative lights and city trees. Sherry? Huh? Oh, man, I'm sorry. I seem to not be with it today. Okay.
We have the consent calendar.
Yeah. All items of the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. As a member of the City Council requests a separate discussion.
Move approval. Second.
Mr. Mayor, I have to recuse myself from item 4, which deals with the drainage easement between Cataract and Monte Vista on commercial.
Okay.
Additionally, Mr. Mayor, we have an ordinance on the consent calendar, so I'd ask the city clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
And that'd be item number 3?
That's correct.
Ordinance 1290, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Dimas, California, changing the date of the city's general municipal election from the first Tuesday after the first Monday in March of even-numbered years to the date of the statewide primary election in even-numbered years, in response to Senate Bill 970, adjusting terms in office accordingly.
Waive further reading.
Do I have a motion?
A second.
So moved.
Okay, and Councilman Ebner is recusing himself from item 4.
Yep.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All
Point of
opposed?
order, Mayor, roll call.
Yes. Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Bertone,
Yes.
Councilmember Ebner,
Yes, except recusal from item 4.
Councilmember Viana,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Bedar.
Yes.
Motion carries by a 5-0 vote with Councilmember Ebner recusing from item on the drainage.
All right, we'll move to other business. Discussion and direction of establishing a policy on private decorative lights on city trees. Sherry?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Sherry Garwick, Director of Public Works. Before you tonight is a request for direction on the the staff's recommendation to prohibit private decorative lights and city trees in the public right-of-way. Okay. As discussed earlier, this came about regarding a request from residents on Via Fresa to install holiday lights in city-maintained trees. Over the last couple years, the staff has issued permits with the intent of pursuing a formal policy prohibiting this installation. However, the neighborhood has indicated the importance of the holiday lights for their community and has asked to address the council on this item. And you've heard several discussion points on it earlier. So when regarding lights and city trees, there's several items of concern for staff. Number one is public safety. We also have concern about damage to the trees, and we have concern about city liability. So in regards to public safety, one of the items that we talked about with the residents earlier on in the first year or two of the permits was the cords across the city sidewalk constituting a trip hazard. They can be suspended as well and cause a hazard from falling, debris on the pedestrians. Part of that was mitigated by removing glass lights from the right-of-way. Also, over the years, we've had drier winter weather and high wind events that can kind of create more of a danger for shock hazards, and also fire. Staff did contact the Los Angeles County Fire Department, both the Station 141, they had a vegetation management representative as well as the city's fire inspector. Via Fresa is in a high fire district. However, the fire inspector indicated that as long as proper mitigation was taken, he would not oppose lighting in the trees. Among the mitigations the fire inspector indicated that he would recommend is a connection to a ground fault interrupt circuit, having nothing strung across the street, lights certified for outdoor use and to be UL listed. And he also recommended eliminating the danger from tripping from trip hazards and low-hanging cords. Then he also recommended that the lights be turned off when they're not being observed. So to have some sort of a limit to the length of time the lights run, both also for the duration in terms of months. The fire department did mention that other parts of the county have protections for certain tree species. For instance, LA County has an oak tree ordinance that could impact the ability to install private lights in oak trees. The city does not have that ordinance. Another of the main concerns with private lights and city trees is preventing damage to trees. The trees can be damaged during installation as well as during removal. While the roots are primarily the most susceptible to the damage, new growth at the ends of the branches are also susceptible to damage when installing lights and other decorative elements in trees. High winds are a concern because light strings can prevent the normal movement of branches. And with over 9,000 trees in the city's inventory, there are limitations to the ability to inspect and preempt damage to the trees. While not a mitigation, more of a deterrent, the city can charge for damage to the trees if the lights do damage the tree. And of note, the city arborist has not found damage to city trees during the years the Villa Fresa neighborhood has strung the holiday lights. Another area of concern for the city is the city liability and costs associated with this. Mitigating the dangers and require responsible parties to pay for damage done to city trees can be done throughout the permit process. This process also requires the applicant to provide insurance. With any damage to private property or injury, the city will likely be named in a lawsuit. But permit conditions can require that the applicant acknowledge their responsibility for restitution. And actually, our permit conditions do require that the applicant assume liability for any damage, even if it exceeds the limits of the insurance. So for instance, with your automobile, if you're involved in an accident, you're at fault with an automobile, and your insurance limit is $50,000, the damage done to the vehicle that you collided with is greater than that, and $80,000, you're responsible for that difference potentially. So our permit does require that. So with these concerns, staff looked at the surrounding communities to see how they address private lighting in public trees. So as shown on the table, we did not find any cities that actually prohibited private lights in city trees. However, when we called the cities, they said that most of them said they discourage lighting in city trees. However, if the resident or business owner wanted to, they could obtain a permit to install the lighting in the trees. So you can see the list of the cities that we called, and then even Claremont did a press release in November of 2020 that discouraged lighting in the trees, yet when we called them, they indicated they did permit it. With that, what would a permit look like? And there would be a long list of permit requirements necessary to mitigate the concerns. This list is extremely onerous, not just to the resident, but also for inspection. Over the last years, there have been violations in the permit conditions that we issued. First year there were more, the second year there was much less. And then as time went on, the responses were much quicker, and that was appreciated. One of the items of last year that was of most concern to staff was stringing of an inflatable airplane across the street When staff did notify the residents that that was a concern, they did remove the inflatable airplane. So as most of these conditions are safety related and must be enforced outside of normal staff hours, there's a lot of staff time involved in ensuring the permittees abide by the conditions. Staff did get compliance for most of the part last year. And in order to enforce the conditions, we can issue fines, $100 for the first violation, $200 for the second violation, $500 for the third and ongoing violation. We can also require that the permittees remove the lights. With the potential safety concerns, the potential damage to the trees, and the owner's permit conditions, both for the resident and for the city, and the difficulty in enforcing these permit conditions, staff recommends prohibiting the installation of private lights in city trees. However, an important part of the consideration is the sense of community that these lights create for the neighborhood. I've heard several residents come forward. The city actually delayed hearing this item for 2 times so that we could get the community here to provide their point of view. So essentially it's a balance between the safety concerns, the permit concerns, and the sense of community that the lights generate. Last year we had 5 residents pull permits for the lights. So out of the neighborhood. I think one of the women mentioned that there was more lights up. We did not see that. So, but with that, staff requests your direction on whether to move forward with staff prohibiting the installation of private lights in the city trees in the public right-of-way.
Okay, Sherry, just a quick question. I know the lady mentioned the fact there are like 22 homes. Okay, the question is, do 22 homes have city trees that got decorated, or did they just decorate their homes and, only 5 city trees were affected? I don't know. I'm asking, do we know?
So what I had on our staff, or in our records, is that there were 5 residents that pulled permits, okay? So that's the only ones that we had that had lights in the public right-of-way. Hopefully, that is accurate.
Our houses have all the trees. There's like 7 trees, and all of us that have the trees got the permit, but all the houses down below just decorated their houses. They don't have the trees that we do. So the ones that have the city trees that decorated, we got the permit.
Okay, and the 5, each homeowner with the 5 trees have to supply the city with insurance?
Yes.
So all 5 homes, not just one insurance policy covering?
All 5.
So each individual homeowner has to pull some type of an insurance premium
So in previous years, the city reduced its insurance requirements to $500,000. That is another point of contention for the city, is that the lower insurance rate increases the city's liability. So our normal permit requirement is $1 million minimum for a permit.
We all had $1 million last year.
You did?
Okay, sir, please. Thank you.
Okay.
First year we got 5,000.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Avila?
So the staff would recommend a permit condition be $1 million minimum.
Was there any discussion about, I know part of the rub against this is the time that they stay on. It's very easy for me even to forget to turn my lights off that are very meager on the front of my house. But is there any discussion, or has there been any historically, about making a condition having the lights on a timer?
We have not required they be on a timer. We have required that they be off at 10 p.m. And then I believe on the weekends, we let it stay on for an hour later.
Sherry, on that point, so that time limitation is for the lights in the public right-of-way.
Yes, only in the public right-of-way.
So I mean, if they are on separate circuits, then lights in somebody's front yard could stay on, if they so choose.
Right.
Sherry, these are, in that cul-de-sac, there's some very large trees, okay? And we obviously don't want people climbing around in the trees, okay? So they have to bring some type of equipment in. What requirements do we have for the safety portion of that?
So we require that they be a licensed contractor to install, to actually install the lights in the right-of-way. So, and in this instance, I believe one of what I was told is that one of the property owners was a licensed contractor, and he installed the lights using a lift, which is creates much less damage to the trees.
Okay, do we require them to produce the licensing on that, or is that just?
Yes.
You tell them that. So we do requirements. So everything what I'm being told is that when we look at the entire package, we can permit it, okay, with certain requirements.
With a very long list of requirements.
A very long list. Yeah, I saw it.
Well.
So, all right. Any further questions of Sherry, or any questions of Sherry? I'm sorry, I seem to go.
I just wanted to ask Sherry, and just so I'm clear, I know there's been a lot of discussion this evening around this specific neighborhood, but Sherry or Chris, the way I read some of this is that we're talking about the implication of this citywide. Is that correct? This isn't, this neighborhood happens to be the passionate neighborhood, but this also could apply to other areas in the community, correct?
That is correct.
So we're talking fire areas in the city, and could be impacted by whatever we decide tonight.
That is correct.
Thank you.
But I believe you said that the fire marshal for that, when you took him up there, he said it was in a fire district, but they could be mitigated by,
a list of conditions.
Yes.
Yes. So the area in question is in a high fire risk area, and but even with that, the fire inspector did say that with the given list of conditions that he would not oppose having the lights installed in the city.
If a person has a private tree on their property, there's no ordinance against decorating that, is there?
No.
Okay.
Wouldn't the same potential dangers kind of go along with a private tree on their own private property as it would with ours?
It would.
So we're just looking at city liability at this point.
Yes.
The fire department said that they would approve this if they had 5 required mitigations, which you talked about before. And personally, I think this is something that the city should be happy with. I know it may be a problem for city staff, but I think something that we could handle. And I would say that we should have these mitigation of the 5 mitigation and others mitigation that you felt that were necessary, and the people should have to be required to get a permit, but then I would allow this to occur myself.
Sherry, I'm sorry, I was curious, is this specific area the greatest fire risk danger throughout the city, this specific neighborhood, or is there another neighborhood that is higher fire danger risk?
It is Villa Verde, but that I couldn't answer, Councilman Viena. I do know that there's several areas in the city that are of high fire risk, some above the 210 freeway, but I don't know which is of the highest. I
can answer that question. As we presented to the Public Safety Committee, a recommendation from the County Board of Supervisors, a motion on encampments in very high fire risk areas. As we are designated, very high fire risk is considered the highest fire risk. That's the highest category. The entire Villa Verde area north of Foothill Boulevard from Foothill north, and a couple other segments around Pudding Stone Park are all considered very high fire risk.
So am I understanding you correctly that this particular neighborhood is not very high fire risk, but it's simply high fire risk? Is that correct?
If it's in the Villa Verde area, the entire area is considered very high.
The reason it would be considered high is that this is an older neighborhood in Villa Verde and the trees are bigger. So there's certain areas in Villa Verde where the trees are a lot smaller than these trees.
Yeah.
I'll just real quick, just because I know it's hard to chime in being remote, but I generally agree with Councilman Bertone's comments that I think this is a positive thing that the neighborhood and the community is doing. Admittedly, though, I'm concerned with the photos. The one gentleman that was in the presentation demonstrated of the outlets and the potential safety hazards associated with that and the coverings and things like this that are concerning, I guess, from the perspective of the city's responsibility in maintaining those outlets and what have you. I think, personally, and I read a lot of the comments on social media over the weekend. I was, I hadn't had a chance to read the staff report, but as I was perusing through San Dimas Buzz and what have you, I don't think anybody on council wants to be the Grinch, put simply. And I think to just specifically respond to Tony Vasquez's comment, I don't think anyone here is on the payroll for anybody or accepted any donations related to tree trimmers or freaking light manufacturers or whatever concoctions of thought he has. All that being said, though, I do think a responsible implementation is important, and I think the public safety concerns need to be addressed. And I wouldn't be opposed to even considering conditions or inspections associated with this. I get staff may want to recuperate costs, but I don't think any of that should be done at any significant expense to the community members. I just think, we need to do our due diligence to support neighbors that I think are donating time, money, and even liability to try to help. And they should co-insure the city, which it sounds like they do.
John?
I agree with what Ryan said about, I think he was basically saying that the kind of permitting process we used last year and maybe the year before, I think last year was the most robust permitting process. It seems to be working. Those lights are festive, and I think we should have more of them throughout San Dimas. But I love them, actually, and so I wanted the city to do what we can to help allow them to continue. I mean, it does make for a lot of neighborhood camaraderie. I mean, I know from Halloween, for example, on San Dimas Avenue, it's kind of wild, but the decorations and stuff like that just really are nice. And kids of all ages from 1 to 101 enjoy them. So I'm in favor of helping to make it happen. And if you need the permitting process to be modified slightly, I'm supportive of doing that.
Last year I went up there and parked, and I walked the entire street up and forward, talked to as many homeowners up there as I possibly could, talked to a lot of people who were driving up there who just had heard about it, and it was very, very inspiring to watch people have fun. I understand there are problems with the city and the enforcement issue, but I think that we can condition this to where we can, it can happen. I just remember that a while back, and maybe somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but in front of the Walker House, we have 2 very large trees, and we put lights in them, and we did it for 2 or 3 years. And all of a sudden, we didn't do it no more, and more people started saying, how come we don't do the lights anymore? Because lights do something for us. I can tell you that many people would like to see us put more lights on Bonita Avenue, allow our restaurants to put more lights on. So lights do something, okay? But I believe it's just as Ryan and everybody else has said, our safety has got to be an absolute prime deal. But I think this neighborhood has expressed the fact that they're willing to do the things that need to be done. So I will be in support of this and ask them to continue to do the good job that they've done in the past, but also remember that there are neighbors, you know, and I realize that the face of the neighbors that are not happy with it or something is unfortunately Mr. McSudian, but there are other neighbors up there who have some concerns. But I'd be supportive of it, and I'd entertain a motion.
Well, I agree with you. I think that I live in the Villa Verde area, and there's a lot of houses up there that decorate their own private trees, and that's not a problem. So you need a motion to...
Well, just a minute. Chris wants to speak.
I think the consensus is pretty clear from the council, so we don't need a motion. Sherry has the authorization to allow for an encroachment permit. I think the bigger concern for me is consistency across the city. And I know, and we have to understand from a city organization perspective, we're going to be extremely risk averse. That's not necessarily the right position to always be in. And so the real question for the council, we will define whatever requirements are appropriate to protect the city. The real question for you needs to be, do we want to allow this kind of activity, which I think it's a great activity, and I've seen it in other communities where thousands of people have benefited from it, so it's not an issue. It's how much risk exposure is the city willing to accept? Because depending on the degree of risk exposure, the amount of enforcement, oversight, review, and potential cost on residents goes up with a higher degree of conservatism when it comes to exposure. And so are we okay accepting some exposure? A lot of exposure? Do we even care? Or do we want absolute protections against the city? And so if you give us that guidance, then we can define an appropriate process that balances cost and safety with allowing the ability for folks throughout the city to do this kind of activity.
We require the homeowner that has the tree in his yard to post a $1 million insurance bond. I think we're going forward with protection of the city. So I personally think I understand that, but you go to Halloween, like the gentleman said, he put spider webs in his trees. Okay, so he didn't worry about the city tree because he didn't think nothing about it. Spider web was okay. But there's lots of people who decorate for Halloween who never thought at all about a city tree. Okay, they have, skeletons hanging, they got this and that. And as John said, go along San Dimas Avenue, people are having a great time. And I think we not only have to protect the city, but we have to remember that we're a community, and what makes us a community is us working together and bringing cheer. We try to do it in Parks and Rec, and so nothing's been said tonight. I have a concern, but nothing has been said tonight to discourage me from going forward with a citywide issue, because I know it is citywide.
So
I will say, just Chris, I hear what you're saying. I do, on the macro level, looking at this citywide, I am concerned regarding potential faulty plugs. I'm concerned regarding the liability associated with the short. Every year during the holidays, especially in my experience at work in law enforcement, we see these fires, these Christmas tree fires, and all of these unfortunate events that happen that are associated with lights, faulty lights, electricity, GFI plugs, and what have you. So looking at that citywide, I am concerned. And I do think that if we were to do a motion tonight on this, or at least my wish would be for staff to go back and come up with a process where we look at inspections that the city needs to conduct to ensure that the sites that are being selected, that these trees, when somebody goes to pull that permit, that they're suitable from a safety perspective to support what's doable there or wish to be done there. And then we can do whatever improvements need to be done from the city's end of it to make sure that it's safe to support what we're doing. It's not enough to sit up here, I feel, and just use our words to pass something. There's an investment here from the city to mitigate the liability that's been expressed by some of what's been pointed out. And I think the other side of that is I'd be curious whether or not, and maybe Jeff, you can answer this, can the city be held harmless or indemnified when somebody pulls this permit in this? Can we release the city of liability when somebody pulls that permit and insures it?
Yes, we do make the homeowner sign an indemnification agreement so that they indemnify the city from any liability or damages when they obtain the permit.
Okay. All right. So I guess, Chris, do you understand what I'm saying in the context of the safety piece?
Absolutely. I think there's two pieces to it. One is if we're considering a permit, ensuring a minimum baseline standard of safety that it pertains to our infrastructure. There's a second piece that was inferred from residents' identification of, let's say on Bonita, here are conditions where you guys have problems, and that was used as an example. Why are you, judging us when we have a higher level of standard with what we do? That's a separate issue that we need to consider separately. And I know our Parks Director is taking note and of the conditions of hazards that we should be checking. And so if you allow us the chance, I think what you're saying is we like this activity. We want some reason in the approach you apply, but we do want to protect the city. We're not necessarily, we're not going to go draconian, but at least we're going to go something to a level that's reasonable.
Right, and I hope last thing would be to the point to what Mr. McSudian raised, and I think other community members have expressed as well, is that we need to have a reasonable enforcement of the curfew as it relates to this and what have you. I mean, nothing is worse than living in a situation or near a situation where, like with the Halloween decorations, when they get the lasers and all these other things, and you have things that are shooting across the street or impacting somebody else's quality of life. So, I think a fair enforcement piece, well thought out and reasonable, whether complaint-based or proactive, coupled with a well thought out public safety infrastructure mitigation piece, I think would be great to have brought back so that we are supportive of this, but being respectful of everybody's perspectives.
We can develop that, and if there's components that require council action, we can bring that forth to council.
All right. You have...
We have direction.
Direction. Okay. Anybody else want to ask Sherry anything, or Chris, or... Okay, let's move forward.
Sherry.
Thank you. Okay, initiation of a municipal code text amendment to amend sections of the municipal code to comply with SB 1383 organic legislation. Sherry, I think this is yours too, and
we will hold it, give it over to Lauren Marshall.
Lauren.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mayor. My name is Lauren Marshall, Senior Administrative Analyst. Tonight, staff is requesting the initiation of a municipal code text amendment to comply with the SB 1383 Organics Bill that will take effect on January 1st, 2022. As the council may recall from the presentation in 2020, jurisdictions have a multitude of responsibilities related to the implementation of SB 1383. Staff hopes the presentation tonight is beneficial and provides some clarification for the immense circumstances that SB 1383 will create for our community, as these new mandatory requirements will be extensive in their nature, as well as the implementation process for our residents and our businesses. As council is aware, the goal of SB 1383 is to reduce methane emissions from landfills by diverting organic materials to be processed through an anaerobic digestion facility and repurposed as compost, mulch, or other alternative fuels. Specific items required by the new organics legislation are providing organics collection to all of our residents and our businesses, establishing an edible food recovery program, conducting education and outreach community-wide, procuring recyclable and recoverable organic products, and then securing access to recycling and edible food recovery capacity for those that are underserved in our community, and then monitoring compliance and conducting rather severe enforcement. In order to implement these program requirements, the municipal code will need to be amended prior to January 1st, 2022. And just so the council is aware, just to reiterate, failure to comply with any of the SB 1383 requirements, as well as any of the SB 1383 organics legislative text, may result in corrective action, including but not limited to the issuance of citations by the state of California via CalRecycle. And should the city fail to comply with implementing and enforcing this program, the city may be placed on a corrective action plan with CalRecycle, with further non-compliance resulting in fines of $10,000 per day per violation. So with that said, once the organics bill is implemented, there will be, as I mentioned, community-wide impacts. The most significant of these impacts will be an increase in price for solid waste services. The League of California Cities recently surveyed cities regarding solid waste and recycling costs. The findings show that the cost of solid waste disposal and recycling is increasing. Cities anticipate rates will increase in the next 3 years due to organics waste regulations and the overall cost of recycling. Out of the 194 cities surveyed, 92% of those cities say that rates will go up in the next 3 years due to these regulations, and basically addressing new costs for the anaerobic digestion process. These are the two significant factors driving up these increases in the rates. These factors are not unique, though, to San Dimas. This is going to affect every single city in the state of California. So this is not an isolated incident. Also, residential, commercial, and multifamily entities must have an organics account with the city's franchise solid waste hauler as of January 1st, 2022, unless granted an exemption per CalRecycle guidelines by the city of San Dimas. Additional community impacts will require universal participation in the state-mandated organics program by putting food waste in the green waste container, unless granted an exemption, again, per CalRecycle guidelines by the city. I cannot emphasize enough to the community and to the council that this is not something the city is implementing, and this is not something that Waste Management is implementing. This is the state of California, pure and simple. Please note, organics may not be placed in plastic bags, including compostable bags. So it'll need to be in something perhaps like this brown bag that I show in the picture here. There is going to be a change in habits that we have to teach the community. It's going to be very similar to when we went from our own cans to the 3-can automated system with the trucks. We all learned to sort those 3 cans, and we're going to learn how to sort them further at this point. When the legislation talks about compliance to this, however, the enforcement states that city staff will conduct contamination audits of customers' containers and issue fines if contamination is found in the bins. And finally, casual dining restaurants, think the Poke Wings Co., Panera, Cafe Rio, they're going to need to have trash recycling and organics container waste sorting available to their patrons with educational signage, as you can see on the photo above, that shows patrons exactly how they need to do this. So the cost of business is going up. This is an unfunded mandate. CalRecycle is not offering to buy businesses these 3 cans. They are not offering to do pretty much anything. So it's all less. In Impacts specific to commercial businesses. Required food recovery program participation for the above Tier 1 entities and Tier 2 entities. Tier 1 will primarily be a grocery store, or it'll be like a wholesale food vendor that has a facility that's 10,000 square feet or more, or is netting, grossing $1 million a year in sales. Tier 2 is a little bit different. It's about a 5,000 foot facility, or up to 5,000 feet, but below 10,000 feet. And they're gonna have different criteria. So you can't hold a restaurant to the same criteria as you can a hospital, as a hotel, as a school, as a large venue. So think Raging Waters. We've already been in contact with them. We've actually reached out to every single business in the community that we think may fall within one of these tiers, and we're working on following up with them to let them know what's going to be required of them. A lot of the Tier 1s we have found are already working with food recovery organizations. Now we're going to have to formalize it. They're going to need to report to us what they're doing. If the Tier 1 doesn't have anything in place, that will get a little bit more dicey because it's more work for them. And again, there's no money coming to them for doing this. So it's the right civic-minded thing to do, but it is putting a lot of onus on our businesses. So I just want the council to be aware of that as well. The food recovery organizations also located within the city will be required to report to the city how much food they are getting from Tier 1 or Tier 2 generators. And just for note, Tier 1 will take effect as of January 2022, and Tier 2 will take effect 2024.
And who's the enforcement arm for this?
To be determined. The city is supposed to actually issue the citations, but we are in close work with our partnership. Terry's in the back. Hi, Terry. And she came to support us. And basically, we're working all of those things out. They may help us because they do audits anyway of the containers throughout the year, or at least a couple times a year, per Cal Recycle guidelines, and they may have to report back to us, but we may have to issue that citation. Additional community impacts. Developers and contractors will also need to meet Cal Green's requirement to recycle 65% of organic waste commingled with construction and demolition debris. As part of the procurement of anaerobically digested materials, such as mulch and compost, the municipal code will need to be updated to require the application of compost and mulch, which will also affect residents, businesses, developers, contractors, anybody who's doing landscaping as part of a project. Per the state's formula, the city of San Dimas will be required to procure 2,794 tons of compost or mulch, or the state's definition of procured materials. And Sherry and I have talked about this, we roughly estimated this would be about 750 semi-trucks full of compost or mulch, which is roughly the size of the Costco development, which is 14 acres.
So is that to use, we're supposed to acquire that, procure that, and use it in landscaping around the city?
Correct, per the updated municipal code.
And can some of that be like the city already does some giveaways where they'll provide free mulch if you go and pick it up?
We do, but that hasn't been anaerobically digested by a Cal Recycle approved facility in the state of California.
So in this new world, if we procure it, can we put it in a big pile and then people can come and get it?
Theoretically, yes.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
And they do encourage mulch and compost giveaways. It's just how
the logistics
much
of that. And
can people use? And this will be an annual amount. This isn't over time.
Right.
This will be every year. It's almost 2,800 tons of mulch or compost or other materials that we're having to figure out how to disseminate. We have spoken with Cal Recycle about the monumental number that they're talking about in such a small area. And they are willing to work with us, and I think as long as we demonstrate intent to comply, they're willing to work with us and won't necessarily cite us. So. just a food for thought. We are in active talks with them on a regular basis with concerns that we have about this bill. So with that said, you can see the impacts of 1383 are far-reaching, and it will impact everyone in our community. As a result, staff has been conducting the following outreach, keeping in mind that some people prefer print information and some people prefer electronic information. I am trying to reach everyone I can, so tell everyone you know. City staff have been conducting SB 1383 outreach efforts in partnership with Waste Management and Cal Recycle to ensure the community is aware of this legislation, including city council presentations. So we had October of 2020, and then we also reiterated it again last year during our rate adjustment in December. And we're here tonight. And we also have the Waste Management Spring and Fall annual newsletter or biannual newsletters. So those have mentioned SB 1383 the last couple of years. We have also been putting organics bill information in the 2020 and 21 Frontiers, the quarterly rec brochure. And social media posts have started as of August. We've done about 3 so far. And we're trying not to burn people out, but we're trying not to blindside them either come January. We also have information on Waste Management's San Dimas website, which is also linked via the city's website. And then there is a typo in your report. I thought the chamber presentation for SB 1383 was tomorrow. It is actually next Wednesday. And we've also had interest from the senior club and a local Boy Scout troop for a presentation. So if anyone is interested, we're absolutely willing to come out, and we're doing those in partnership with Waste Management. So we're there together. So with that said, in order to implement and comply with this unfunded state mandate, community-wide, the municipal code will need to be amended. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council direct staff to initiate a municipal code text amendment to amend sections of the municipal code in order to comply with the implementation of SB 1383. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
I have a question, if I may.
Oh.
On page 129, it talks about organic waste. It talks about food scraps. Don't most of those go down the garbage disposal?
So I'm looking at Sherry because we had actually thought that this was a viable option for quite a bit of food.
Yeah.
Until her father's garbage disposal broke when she was trying to do that. So it might not be a permanent solution for everyone.
So buy a heavy-duty garbage disposal is what I'm hearing.
Or buy a few goats and we can use them. I will highlight Cal Recycle is the same entity that regulates our recycle centers, and we know how great it's been to resolve any issues with that. And in terms of the facilities in Southern California, in Northern California, there are composting sites that are off-gassing natural gas that comes from this anaerobic process because there's so much they can put out and not utilize for some productive means. In Southern California, we don't necessarily have the amount of facilities, and so some of the costs that gets passed on to our residents regionally are going to be the base infrastructure improvements to accomplish the wise wisdom of the state of California, which I understand the goal, but I think in terms of the implementation, some money should have come behind from the state to assist in this implementation.
Talking about the enforcement of the audits that you were talking about, what does that look like just for the average consumer and a household? What would an audit look like?
Usually what we'll do is we'll go out and we'll either pick a neighborhood or we'll pick a certain time frame and we'll lift up the lid of the trash can and we will see if there is food scraps in the black container or there's food scraps or green waste in the recycling container. And we make note of that. We'll take photos, note the address, and I do believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we would do warnings and education before we just carte blanche start citing.
I think there's been my work has already started implementing these separation bins, and nobody gets it. And when they see the sign on the wall, they kind of just walk right by it and, toss their banana peel in whatever container they want to toss it into, and it just makes it wherever it makes it. And talking to people about this SB 1383, I think there's going to be some big surprises coming. No matter how much information we push out there, it's not going to be enough to prepare people for literal trash police coming around and looking in your trash, which to me is, it honestly, and I'm not exaggerating this at all, just looking through this presentation, it didn't just make me angry, it made me sick to my stomach that this is actually going to happen. So again, it's along with the RENA presentation that we just listened to, it's another mandate that's been pushed down from the state, and it's one of those, we need to be careful what we vote for when it comes to our state representatives, because this is, it may have a very noble intent, but the idea of, and especially making the city be the enforcement arm, is just so disappointing to me. If you're going to make a mandate that's dang near impossible to enforce, then you better be the one to enforce it. But of course, they push it on to us like they always do.
Is that in the realm of a motion?
To initiate, yeah, that's resounding support from Eric on initiating the code amendment. But yeah, we have to do it.
Oh, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll be the one. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
A second. Any other further discussion? Warren, thank you.
I'll just say, as it relates to this and kind of what Eric alluded to, is that I think this is very poorly thought through, and the implementation, I think, is premature. I think that in mixed-use development, multifamily development, and things like this that we have in the community, that Eric's right. People don't know what they're getting into, and I wish we had all those HOAs that were out here for another topic not too long ago. I imagine they don't even know what's coming, because once you have your homeowners not complying with this, if your HOA covers your trash, stand by on the games that are going to be played and the fines that are going to be realized, potentially from their waste management provider to those residents. Or in a mixed use situation where you have organic waste being generated by mixed use commercial, and you're having the residents have to pay those fines or fees. So I think the games are only, we're right at the beginning of this, and I think the city probably needs to really impose to waste management that there needs to be a very focused, spirited education campaign and purposeful outreach, to the point where I would even suggest staff needs to make sure that they get agendized at the HOA meetings, at all of the HOAs throughout the community, to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on, or at least insist that waste management gets agendized with it as well, so everyone understands and there's no surprises.
We can definitely make
And I'll
that.
begrudgingly be supporting this motion.
And Ryan, I'll tell you, the waste management representative is here, and she's making copious notes.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I'm glad to hear that, but I know that waste management did do some outreach maybe a year and a half ago or so, but I don't think anybody knows or even understands. And to be frank, I think that, and I know from my own experience, there are places where there are not even infrastructure to support the bins that are going to be required to do this. So I hope staff is prepared to make whatever flexible accommodations need to be done, or waste management is going to have to figure out how to be able to do multiple pickups and increases to be able to keep up with what's going to come out of this. So I mean, I just, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle to implement this. And I know my HOA, I know the one across the street. I have no idea about what's going on. And I've talked to a few business park owners who also have restaurants in them, and they're not even prepared. I mean, nobody really, it's unfunded, so, it doesn't seem to have that seriousness attached to it at this point.
Okay, well,
I think the effect on commercial businesses will be a lot bigger than on residential. I think residential, we can handle it with their garbage disposal. But hospitals and stores are going to have a real problem.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Bertone.
Yes.
Councilmember Ebner.
Yes.
Councilmember Vienna.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Weber.
Yes.
Mayor Bedar.
Yes.
Motion carries by 5-0 vote.
To be frank about this, it just passed.
Great.
All right, we're going to move forward. Do we have anything positive tonight?
Hey, we got Christmas lights.
No, yeah.
That was positive.
All right, this is going to be a discussion on and a direction on the city bus shelters, design standards, and homeless sleeping places.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and members of the city.
The more of these bus shelters we have, the bigger problems we have, Okay, I'm sorry, Sherry.
Oh, that's okay. Sherry Garwick, Director of Public Works. Before you tonight is a request for your direction on replacement of the wooden bus shelter standard that's currently been used in the city. Staff recommendation is to move forward with a metal prefabricated design. So, this is a picture of the current bus shelter standard that's used in the city. This one's outside the City Hall. While Foothill Transit operates the bus system in the city, city staff actually installs and maintains the bus stop locations, shelters, and trash cans, and services the trash cans. We receive funding for this maintenance from Proposition A funds, or Proposition A, which is our Fund 72. We get approximately $650,000 a year in Proposition A monies. However, this money is primarily spent for Get About and Dial a Cab programs. Okay. We typically allocate only about $19,000 a year for bus stop maintenance. The wooden bus stop shelters have been around for, I would say, at least 30 years. We have 18 locations in the city, and each bus shelter is fabricated site-specific. So it's actually formed on site. In recent years, we have not installed bus shelters, primarily because the bus stops are relocated or deleted by Foothill Transit based on ridership demand levels, and the city has no input on that. Instead, what we typically install is metal bus benches. Those are much more easy to relocate. This one is out in front of, I believe it's the Mobile gas station in the Smart and Final shopping center. So why replace the standards? The wooden bus shelters are very difficult to work on. As I said, each one is site-specific. The contractor that did that fabrication for us has actually gone out of business. So and anytime there's a repair, we actually have our staff fabricate the parts on site. The wood material is not durable. It's subject to graffiti or engraving or carving of graffiti. And whenever it gets painted or carved, we have to sand the structure and restain the structure. And also on the wooden bus shelters, we have to inspect them periodically just to make sure that there's no splinters. So, and finally, it is, as the mayor indicated, it is difficult to sanitize these shelters if there's any type of spills on them. And these type of shelters are also, they're difficult to relocate, and it requires removal of the concrete pad underneath as well. And also, it's potentially dated architecture. This style was adopted in the 90s when we had the Frontier downtown. We've since essentially moved on, I believe, to an early California architecture as opposed to a frontier village. So all of these disadvantages could be addressed by moving to a prefabricated metal shelter. Also, another advantage of the metal shelters is that they more readily meet ADA standards. Where there are some disadvantages of the metal shelters, they are more costly to install. And there would be a transition period in the city, so we have 18 wooden shelters. There'll be a time where we have wooden shelters, metal shelters, and benches. So this is what we're asking for is a City Council's direction on a long-term program for bus shelters, and it would each bus shelter and the prefabricated bus shelter could be 15 to 20 some odd thousand, depending on which model you choose. So it would be a long-term program.
Is there any money that can come from applying for a grant or something from Foothill Transportation or somewhere?
We would look for grant monies, absolutely. And in fact, one of the reasons why this has come up at this time is I'm dead on my, okay, next slide. Oh, sorry.
Is Proposition A, the grant money, can that be used?
Yes, in fact, that's what we do use right now, is the Proposition A monies, but we would be competing with the Get About and the dial-a-cab services. So we only get about $650,000 a year. Most of that money goes to those services. So, the reason why this come about now is the Gold Line is actually getting ready to relocate 2 bus stops in the vicinity of Bonita Cataract. So the 2 bus stops are highlighted in yellow. Those bus stops will actually move further to the west, and when the street is reconfigured. So, and in discussions with Foothill Transit, the Gold Line indicated that Foothill Transit is asking for bus shelters at both locations and expanding those locations. We've also received a couple of requests from residents as well over the time. One of the residents wants bus shelters in every single bus stop location, which would be expensive. And then another resident has had targeted location. So the next several slides are different bus shelter styles for your consideration. These are in your report as well. All but one of them are included in your report, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The top 2 examples of shelters are examples of shelters that staff would recommend. The primary consideration that we would look at for a bus shelter in terms of functionality is the single pole supports. If you look at the single pole support here, it makes it much easier for ADA clearance around it. It's less impact on the line of sight when you have vehicles pulling out of driveways or trying to make a right on a street. And it's a much simpler connection to the ground. You can kind of see that these are connected by bolts. So to remove this shelter, what we would do is we'd take it apart, and then we would shear the bolts and just fill in the concrete and patch the concrete. We would not have to remove the entire concrete slab. So as I indicated, there is one that we did not include in your report. That's this model right here. This is actually one that the Planning Department Director recommended for the downtown, and it has a It's got a brick material on it, and if you look, the bottom of it is much wider than what you see up above, which Public Works would prefer. Also, the material on this is, the reason why we did not recommend it in the report is that the material on it is brick, which is highly susceptible to graffiti and etching, and is not nearly as mobile as just removing a pole. So this is one that I wanted to highlight to you, that planning does like this, but Public Works would not recommend this for use. And also relocation would be very difficult. We'd have to remove all the bricks and replace them. Okay. Here's some other series and types of shelters, and I wanted to just give you some ideas of the different types of shelters. Primarily, it's the roof line that makes the difference. So this is a gable roof. Here's an axle type roof, which staff likes, which and you can determine if that's something that you would like to move forward with, or you have the more a gable, a hip roof. Also, there's other types of things on a bus shelter. You can install side panels, which we don't recommend because they're susceptible to graffiti or etching, and they also can block line of sight. However, you can put advertisements on them and potentially get some revenue, although we don't recommend that. Okay, so staff is looking for any input that council has on the types of shelters that you would, what types of shelter you like in terms of architecture, so that we can potentially bring back do some cost investigation and bring back some potential examples for you to choose from.
I think I'm preferential to the gabled single post.
The gabled single post.
What? Sure, I have a question about...
Are you recommending one more than the others?
So this one right here is one that Foothill Transit and Gold Line were looking at. They recommended for the relocation on Bonita. However, it is up to you on what you prefer. If you like the gable roof, then we'll come back with something that has a gable roof, and they have a metal structure on top.
Are we concerned about inclement weather? You know, the one I like is the first one, okay? But I'm not sure that there's enough shelter there if we ever have that 100-year rain. And so I was just, wondering how, it's kind of hard for me to tell just how much that covers.
So this one, oops, wrong one. So the roof on this varies between, it can't get more than about 7.5 feet, otherwise we lose our right-of-way. We extend beyond our right-of-way, and you don't want to extend into the traveled way. So this particular structure, I do have some specifications on it. It's, but I believe that the canopy is about 7.5 feet wide, so there would be some shade provided. Again, as you indicated, in a high downpour or a downpour that has heavy winds, you're going to get wet. But especially with the new weather conditions, we have less and less of that condition. So primarily when the residents that we talked to, they were concerned about shade.
Sherry, a question about that one on the top right, which on the next page of the presentation, it's noted as the axle.
Yes.
So can you put a bench under there?
Absolutely. So the intent would be we would likely, for a typical bus shelter, you'd have just a single span, so you would have just 2 poles and the canopy on top, and then you would have a bus shelter, a bench right in here. So.
And are we going to put lighting in all the shelters that we do?
So we do not at this time, but that is something that you can select if you would like, if you want lighting. That, I mean, it adds costs, but that is something that would be appropriate for a standard.
Some, they light up when the bus comes or when people are under it, so it's kind of a motion detection or something like that, not lit all the time. And the other question I had, there's one near the end, and a lot of these are great, and the gable ones are good too. The one on the next to last page is the arrow. Oh, that one there on the left. I mean, that looks pretty big, so can you get the same design in a smaller configuration?
We'll bring that back. What I wanted to get from you tonight is some direction on what styles you like so that I can bring them back to you and give you some cost estimates so you can get a feel for what the different costs are, because I'm sure that costs will figure into the ultimate style that we choose.
I like craftsman stuff and old looking things, so some of the shapes, like with the gables and the hips, are that way. On the other hand, I don't know, maybe we want to choose a style that makes as much a statement as a bus shelter can, and do the things that people have talked about, provide the shelter, provide a bench, because although I know they can be used for people sleeping on them, they're not supposed to, but so many people who take the bus, and even just regular people who don't have any disabilities at all, or kids or anything like that, it's just people like to sit down when they're waiting for the bus. I've taken the bus a lot, and when you're standing there for a long time, it's just, unless there's a nice tree nearby, it's kind of a hassle.
I think we do want seating.
And the metal, the metal's, seating, and it gives our staff the opportunity to clean it, by just spraying it like they do the sidewalks downtown.
Yeah, right.
And so they can,
Much easier.
when they're doing the sidewalk downtown, and, they can do a periodic run through the city. And so I just think that, the big bulky things kind of make it a little more difficult. The metal benches, I realize they get hot, but on the other hand, like that first one right there, we kind of want to prevent that type of look.
I just, as Sherry, for my 2 cents on this, I'm concerned that looking at all of these, not just here in San Dimas, but in my travels throughout the county, that they are in fact shelters if we make them shelters. And it wasn't that long ago that council may recall that we had a situation with a gentleman who was homeless that took shelter in one of these on the northeast corner of Bonita and San Dimas Avenue, to the point where drapes were beginning to be hung, and the whole thing was being taken over, which created an interesting enforcement problem. I think that we need to be mindful of this and really think this through, because if we're concerned about homelessness and the potential impact that will have with the launch of the Gold Line, then this decision needs to be, I think, thought through very critically, because anything that is going to be inviting and potentially used for shelter probably will be. So I know, Sherry, on one of those, if you go back to the slide John was talking about, there was a bench right there, the top left, that actually has those bars in between it, right? So, I mean, a feature like that is going to discourage somebody from laying horizontally across the bench. But is that a feature? I mean, I would almost want to have a pretty robust discussion about the necessity of a bench, because in the absence of a bench, someone's really going to be waiting there under the shade just for the bus. And, I hear what you're saying about singular pulls versus the structure. I do see the point in the argument that if there's only one like this one in the upper right, or even on the slide before this one, I think John was talking, next one. So this upper right, the axle with lighting, the less things that people can attach to, and the less opportunity for vandalism and for commandeering the structure, I think it really sticks to being true to what it's intended to be, and that's a transportation stop. So I'm not necessarily opposed to benches, but I do think, I would like to have probably the sheriff's department, review each one of these, and maybe even the homeless outreach services team who deals with homelessness pretty routinely, and see what their experience has been with this, both here in our city and I think abroad, because while it may make sense in other areas, if we're moving towards a place where downtown is going to be more densely populated, then perhaps in the downtown area, we don't put benches. Perhaps we have the benches on the outskirts, like Foothill or maybe in Via Verde, and other places that are a little bit more off the beaten path. But in the downtown area, we want people moving. We want people getting on the buses. We want people keeping up, because there's plenty of places you could sit down and grab a cup of coffee at Starbucks and wait for the bus, and then walk to the stop for your brief wait. Or you could go to Sweet and Savory, or any of these other places, or even City Hall, and sit next to Jedediah while you wait for that bus right there. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we could just be smart about this.
Another option that I like is the very last one, the Tolar with a sign on it. It looks like Downey might have used that one. But the neat thing about that design is that you can probably get those, because there's another Tolar right before that. But you can probably get them without the signs and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it'd be kind of neat as part of the downtown plan to have something like that, where you could have that kind of a sign if you wanted to do that. I mean, it's optional and everything like that. As I mentioned, I've ridden the bus a lot, and I think that a lot of the time you need to be out there by the bus stop, where the bus just keeps going. Now, if you have a bunch of other people waiting there, then you can probably afford to be, in a restaurant waiting, and then, and now it's getting better and better. They've got apps and everything like that now, where it says the bus is going to be there in 1 minute, so you can get out there. But people do wait under the bus stop, and for the 99% of the people who are using the bus stop for transportation, like Ryan was saying, we want to make it a nice experience. The benches, and that one bench, by the way, on that very last one, does have the little bars that Ryan was talking about, where so you're going to be, it'll be less comfortable to lie down. You have to bring all your pillows and blankets to make it comfortable.
I think there's some interesting solutions for that. I think we're not the first ones to go down this road. I know I've seen kind of more standing, leaning, small, narrow seats rather than that are a little higher than a full bench that you can lay down across the whole thing. So I think there's solutions there. We're just like Ryan was saying, just need to be careful about how we implement it.
I think what I'm hearing, I'm hearing some of the factors that the council's considering that are important. The other aspect we need to consider is Fund 72, which funds transit. This year had some unique expenses in it, but we're almost fully expended the fund balance. And so we far in excess are spending this year than what the revenue is coming in. And we haven't even taken a look at dial-a-ride and the level of services that we're offering in alternate transportation modalities. And as the Gold Line goes in and additional other transit amenities are in, we have to maintain those amenities, and that comes from Fund 72 as one source. And so whenever we make a consideration, it's beautiful to say, oh, I like this, it's beautiful, let's do this, let's do that, and then we're looking at what's its cost, how many of them, if we have to move it, maintain it, do something else to it, provide some access level to it, that's all going to come from that same fund. And so I think what we're hearing is we want some level of shelter from the elements. We want to offer some ability for respite while you're there waiting for a ride on the bus, but we don't want to make it an attractive nuisance, and we don't want it to make it an unsafe amenity. And with that, I think staff can look at it a little more deeply with some of our other resources, like the sheriff's office, and try to come up with a concept or two that kind of fit the bill based on what you've conveyed, and then maybe come down with a more limited amount with little aspects of it and say, what do you think? Select from these. Is that?
I think we do want to have a place for people to sit, though.
Correct. That's the respite that we were asking for.
I would invite anyone to come out with me in the morning and walk in East Los Angeles, where I walk 6 miles each morning at work when I get going in the morning. And I will tell you, there is not one homeless person along any of the bus stops on Floral. And I know Dennis knows where that's at, near Mednick. And if you walk all of that, you don't see one homeless person around any one of those bus stops. And that's because there's literally no shade and there's literally no seating. But who is there every morning is the hardworking people of East Los Angeles that wait for the bus stop, get on the bus stop and go. So I understand, I understand the general gist of what you said, Chris, and the council. I will just say that I'm not confident that seating is something that necessarily may be advantageous in certain areas of the city, specifically the downtown area and in and around the Gold Line on Bonita. But I'm generally supportive of it throughout the city and other areas such as Foothill, Villa Verde, and all the others, Covina, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think as we look at that, that's a good point. You look at Ontario Airport seating where you're literally looking at about an 8-inch width seating that flips up. You can't sleep on it, but you can sit on it, and there's options. I think we need to consider something that if what we put in place doesn't meet our needs, we can transition to what we want in a way that's cost effective, with the ultimate goal of providing the kind of factors you wanted in the transportation area.
Okay, is this going to require a motion, or just is Sherry going to look at some future ideas and then bring it back to us?
I can bring you back some ideas. I'm hearing that you like a gable roof with the single poles, and that you like some of the axle roof. I can bring those back. If there's any other style that you would like, let me know, and we'll also focus on the benches to make sure that we provide styles that aren't conducive to homeless, and we'll run it by the sheriff and the homeless advocates.
Yeah, I'm generally supportive of what Ryan was talking about, the fact that the downtown area, where maybe with benches might not be such a wise idea. I don't walk 6 miles in the morning, but I understand those places closer to downtown, there are people standing there getting ready to get to the bus, and I'm not sure exactly how our bus situation is going to run after the goal line gets here, because even Foothill is even talking right now that they don't know if they're going to have to reroute things, or if there's going to be even a need for the park and ride situation until they figure out what the ridership of the goal line is going to be. So I understand what Ryan's saying about the benches, and I'd be very open-minded to both concepts.
Then for direction, would you consider this area part of downtown?
Yes.
To look, okay, so we would not look for a bus shelter or a bench in those locations?
Well, I don't know about the shelter. A shelter is, to me, is something that supplies some shade.
Okay.
Okay. That's just me. I think there's got to be some type of shade offering, for inclement weather, for the rain or whatever. So I just don't want to have two pipes and somebody says this is a bus stop.
Okay.
So.
Sherry, I'll just add one. Thank you, Mayor, for seeing that. And I think the other byproduct of that potentially is that the bus stops encourage patronization of our businesses. So if someone knows that there's not going to be a place to go sit there for 10 minutes while they wait for the bus, they're likely to go get that cup of coffee or to stop in one of our downtown businesses or merchants, which keeps people from sitting around, right, and doing something positive. And the other thing, just for Sherry, is I also would be interested in lighting. A lot of nefarious things happen at bus stops that are poorly lit. And the other issue is that also attracts people, like we learned with that gentleman on the northeast corner of San Dimas Avenue and Bonita, that became a very challenging thing for the law enforcement agency to deal with. Is I would not be interested in a structure that makes it easy to put up 4 walls. So if someone can drape all 4 corners of that bus stop relatively easily because it's relatively easily reachable or accessible in terms of height, then I think we also need to look at that. So it's well lit, not easy to commandeer, and doesn't invite that type of activity.
All right, I believe staff has some direction. They feel like they're going to, unless anybody else has something they feel burning desire to say. Sherry, thank you very much.
Can I ask one last question?
Sure.
So the GO line would actually be paying for these 2 structures? If that has any?
Oh, get the most expensive you can then.
Okay.
No,
Have them build a 3-story building,
And let me speak to that. This is like a grant. Just because you're getting money thrown your way don't go for the best. Go for what we need for our long
Yes,
term.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Ma'am, this isn't a public hearing, but if you got something real brief to say, go ahead. I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't hear you. Do you want to come up here to the... I know.
There you go.
We really appreciate the fact that you've come out tonight. You've
Absolutely.
Who says we have to have a bench? What about stools?
there's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of ideas, and I can tell you our Public Works Director is just shaking her head, so she's hearing you.
It doesn't have to be. See, the homeless will lay on the bench. They'll sit on a stool, and they'll go. They won't sleep on a stool. They'll fall.
Hey, thank you.
Okay.
Good idea.
That is a good idea.
Right. Thank you.
Let's put a pole there to have them lean on it. So, all right, so we got through that, I think. Okay. We're going to move on to the next is the San Dimas Housing Authority. Consider approval of a property management agreement with Haven Management Services Incorporated for the operation and management of Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates and Monte Vista Senior Apartments. Excuse me. Chris?
I'll introduce Ann Garcia, our Senior Administrative Analyst, to start the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and members of the public. I'm Ann Garcia, Senior Administrative Analyst in Community Development Department. The San Dimas Housing Authority is the owner of the Charter Oaks Mobile Home Estates located at 801 West Covina Boulevard and the Monte Vista Senior Apartments located at 105 North Monte Vista. Both properties are operated by a professional management company for the day-to-day functions, while the city staff maintains oversight of both properties. At this time, the agreements for management services are contracted with Becerra and Kassenheiser. The contracts were executed in 2005, which was 16 years ago. Since then, the agreements have continued on a month-to-month basis. The terms of the agreement have remained virtually unchanged from their original form. After review and evaluation of the services provided under the current agreement, staff is proposing that the city initiate a fresh start at both properties, which involves retaining a new property management company. Within the last couple of years, staff has researched other park operators and reached out to public agencies who have retained property management services for city-owned properties. Haven Management Services out of Ontario, California, came highly recommended from the city of Laverne, who have contracted with them for over 20 years for their 2 mobile home parks. Haven was found to be highly regarded in their industry, managing multiple properties in all age groups, including senior-only properties, and having a track record of being responsive to their clients' needs. Haven was noted to be engaged with the property issues as well as continuously visible and active in their parks. Staff is currently working to develop a robust agreement with the new proposed property management company to ensure that any current needs are addressed and that proper planning for future needs are thought out and programmed in a multi-year capital improvement plan. In the meantime, staff is recommending that the Housing Authority authorize the city manager or his designee to negotiate and execute any and all documents necessary for a management service agreement with Haven Management Services, including a one-page agreement that states Haven will perform the services starting October 1st and comply with all the provisions and requirements as outlined in the current agreement with Becerra and Casanars. So this concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions you may have.
If I may add to this, we received notice, a 30-day notice of termination from our current provider, and we got an extension for 90 days, so there was a very short window to determine the best approach forward. We needed somebody to operate the mobile home park in Monte Vista. So we interviewed candidates that were local mobile home providers that are in the city of San Dimas now. We got recommendations, of which Haven was one of them. Interviewed Haven. We were very satisfied with the results, very satisfied with the city managers and the lead liaison in Laverne's perspective and engagement with this firm. And so rather than develop a very robust agreement and take the time to make sure it's a lot stronger than the current agreement, which is quite vanilla, we'd rather transfer the service over with the new provider, get the new provider in there, and ensure a more robust agreement that protects the city's interests and ensures that we have a top quality management firm there that not only looks at the day-to-day, but it looks at what we as a city have approved, our Fund 100 long-term capital, looks at what we need to do over the next 5, 10, 15 plus years to make sure that the mobile home park remains in its top condition at the lowest cost. So I think this is the best way forward, and I recommend approval.
Questions?
Need a motion? Need a motion, I would.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to jump the gun. Nope. Okay, then I would make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation and go forward with the new management company.
Second.
Any further questions? Okay. Deborah, would you please read the roll?
Councilmember Bertone?
Yes.
Councilmember Ebner?
Yes.
Councilmember Viana?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bedar?
Yes.
Motion carries by 5-0 vote.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to oral communications. Members of the audience, speakers are limited to 3 minutes or as may be determined by the chair. Okay. Anyone wishing to address the council?
Good evening again. Just correct me, would I be able to speak on any subject matter or, all right.
Oh, anything you want to talk about.
All right. First of all, just want to address that gentleman who did not take my illness seriously. Shame on him not to believe that individual with leukemia, it's a serious matter. Second, this is not about Sit Maksudyan, where the other gentleman said that I have some grievances or denied some permits. Get your facts right. Third, this is about the city. As you guys know, I've been very passionate, ran for city council myself, ran for mayor for the city. I know a whole lot about structure and everything. I corrected a lot of things the days that I spoke out here. But now, this is not about lights. You gentlemen are not even asking. If you permit the situation go forward, imagine November, December, 46,000 individuals in the city of San Dimas. On these trees you cannot climb. You cannot go up there with a rope. You got to have those booms. How are you going to manage November, December if, let's say, 50% of the city decided, okay, there's a great ordinance, let's bring the booms? Are you kidding? kidding me? Are you guys thinking? Just like before, none of you were thinking that the issues that I brought forward regarding Bonita and then things did pan out. Think ahead. Do not think because it's Sid or John or John Doe. You pay this lady, Sherry. You pay the other individuals that run the department. And if you gentlemen are not going to take their recommendations serious, why the heck are you paying them? Why do you have staff to recommend that this is no good? If you want to look at it in front of the public, that's another thing. But this is a serious matter. You're talking about $1 million liability? Are you kidding me? Today, each home in Villa Verde costs $1 million. So if a fire starts and the city thinks it's going to protect himself with a liability being thrown on the individual, do you think that individual has enough insurance money to take care of, let's say, 10 or 5 or 16 homes that are going to get burned? And who's going to pay for that? You? No. Please, do not make this like in the past about Sid. I haven't been here for 8 years. I'm dealing with my own sickness. At least a little bit of respect. That leukemia, it's a serious, I don't wish it even upon the stupidest person here. But gentlemen, think about this. Give it some time. They dragged this for 2 years to get something done. Let's have a little bit more time to think through. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to speak towards the council?
By the way, no one picks on Sid. He currently has vehicles parked in his right of way. He grows marijuana outside. That's against the city, but we don't complain. But I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about the liabilities that he mentioned for the trees. Like he said, we pull a policy. If I have my tree in my yard, they're susceptible. I have 40-foot pine trees in my yard. A lot of us have our own trees on our own properties. So there's no difference between 5 feet away, which is a city-owned tree. And by the way, they're beautiful trees, but we didn't ask for them to be planted there. They were relocated from the freeway. So we maintain these trees. But $1 million in policy, catastrophe could happen. The tree could fall. They're on a circuit. We have 4 protections. Someone said Christmas trees, fires happen inside of homes. Inside of homes, there's not GFCI receptacles. Outside of homes, we have GFCI receptacles. The light strands themselves have fuses. We have 3 different protections. If one fails, you have another one, and then you have another one. Second, our trees, you can't signify trees. Everyone has, it could be a shrub, it could be a plant. A lot of people just drape net lights over there. So if you say trees, the same hazards exist with trees, shrubs, skeletons that hang. I can think of a million things. I can think of little children that, the bonita trees, for example, they're not zip tied. They're just simply placed in the branches and twined. A little kid, my little girl that could reach 3 feet, can simply grab one of those, chew on it. Our trees are zip tied. They're far up in the air. You can't get to them. And in the wind, zip ties keeps the strand on the tree. I don't mean to point out our trees or point out design in our city, but the trees, for example, on Bonita, if wind happens, they're going to come off. They're not permanently secured. They're just like twined in. I have pictures of them just hanging. Some are missing cords. I'm not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about liabilities. But there's no difference of a fire happening in a whole neighborhood of a tree that's 5 foot away from a 40-foot pine tree that I can put 10,000 lights on and I can leave on 24 hours a day. I could put up a sign in the back right in front of Sid's home and I can light it up all day and no one could say anything. These are trees we're very, very respective on, and most of us, by the way, do have timers. Most of us have Bluetooth timers. It is a new little process, and Sherry's not misrepresenting. There was a mistake possibly once, or it may have been twice, where they may have been on past 10. But we've implemented new direction. We have timers, and we'll do whatever it takes to satisfy the city. and we do this with great pleasure. And God forbid over my dead body would I want a fire or anything like that to happen in my neighborhood or anyone else's neighborhood here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to let the mayor and the council members know that when I moved here, it used to be called Mud Springs. And I don't want San Dimas to turn into a suburban jungle. You know, so with this property that you guys are looking for, please be very selective on the property pick for, you know, not so much crowdness going down small little streets and things like that. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. You've stood up several times.
Just let them speak first. Good evening, City Council, members of the audience. So the report I have for SB 9 and SB 10, it has been enrolled for the governor to sign or veto, unfortunately. But it will not go down without a fight. So those of you who don't know what SB 9 and SB 10, basically it deregulates our local zoning laws that we've put in, some for certain cities 100 years, others more recently, but basically it deregulates local zoning laws. And unfortunately, on good authority, Governor Newsom is most likely to sign SB 9 and SB 10. But again, it will not go down without a fight. So recently there has been a proposed ballot initiative. It's going through the process. It's going through the process, of course. The Attorney General has to give a ballot title, so on and so forth. Mayor of Redondo Beach, Bill Brand, has gone through the legislative analysts and has gotten the language for the proposed ballot initiative. So the organization that has concocted this proposition is called Communities for Local Control and Choice. The website is communitiesforchoice.org. So if you are, we hear a lot, tonight was basically the theme, it was all size fits all. And if you want to retain that local control of single family zoning, then support communities. Go onto the website communitiesforchoice.org and fight all these bills that have been passed previously, as well as the new bills that will basically deregulate all our zoning laws. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay. Sir?
Good evening, Council and the Mayor. I would totally agree with the attorney that putting private decorative lights on city streets opens the city to a huge statutory hole opening. I would also agree with the young engineer or with the electrical guy that there are problems with some city equipment, electrical equipment. For example, the opening around the trees is ideal for someone's foot to get stuck in there while getting electrocuted, literally. That picture tells even amateur that. And would you please stop the time? Is there a possibility for me, so I would agree with everyone, is there a possibility for me to yield my time to another person, the remainder of the time? Can I yield my time to another person?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah, feel free.
Thank you, sir. I would like to yield the remainder of my time, which is approximately 2 minutes and 7 seconds, to the gentleman with leukemia. Thank you. Have a blessed evening.
No, I'm sorry. Sir? No.
So point of order in the Brown Act, a speaker gets his 3 minutes, they don't get a chance to speak twice.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No,
yes, sir.
you can't do that. With
Are you reversing yourself?
No, you can't yield your time. I'm sorry.
You just said that I could.
So you can, no, I'm telling you now.
I may have misunderstood.
Yeah, you cannot do it.
Or maybe I misunderstood.
You did misunderstand, and you didn't misunderstand.
Oh, okay, so
I made a mistake.
So I didn't get
I'm sorry.
So I didn't get it, you saying I didn't get a
You
permission?
can finish your time,
to get?
and I'll give you a few more seconds on it.
I understood I got a permission to yield my time.
No,
Okay, I stand.
I made a
correct-
mistake. I made a mistake.
I stand corrected. Okay, I have a difficulty hearing. problem
Understand.
hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else like to speak?
I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Steve Hernandez. I'm a resident up in the Villa Verde Woodwalk area. And I thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time. This is my very first meeting. Shame on me for not being more involved, because this is super interesting what's going on here and the topics. That's why I'm kind of like not even sure if I should even bring this up, but since I'm here and you're asking. So there's an application for tree removals behind our property, which is 1410 Cayalenda. The application was okayed by the city planner. You have an intern, I'm going to blow her name, Sia, I think. Yes. So she's who we were in contact with today. So when this was approved on the 27th, there's a 14-day appeal, but we were never contacted through our association, homeowners, which I'm kind of need to discuss with them too, why we weren't informed. And we came to the city to see if we can appeal it. But after those 14 days, city planning rules are you can't appeal it. So now we have to wait 60 days. If the work isn't done or the trees aren't removed, then everything stops. But I'm just asking, is there a way we can appeal it even after the 14 days has passed? That's all. It's really that simple. I kind of like embarrassed that I'm even having to come up here and ask, but you're all willing to listen, and I really appreciate that.
I'll tell you what, if you would give your name and number to the guy sitting right here, Brad McKinney.
Brad?
Okay.
I met him earlier.
Yeah, he will make sure that it gets to the people that needs to talk to you about it.
Okay.
And
I've talked to him twice today.
Explains to you the actual appeal process, and I'm not sure exactly. As far as I know, I don't think there's an extension of that appeal process, but I'm not sure. So let's let the staff handle that.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
sir.
Appreciate your time.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are great.
All right, anyone else have anything more to say? No. Seeing no one come, city manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On SB 9, yes, the bill is on the governor's desk and most likely will get signed. The COG, on our behalf, with our permission, has issued a letter to the governor urging his veto of SB 9. So we've done the best that we can, and we'll see what the results are. In terms of the Gold Line received news that they will not be receiving funding to be able to extend the Gold Line from Pomona to Montclair, so currently the project will be ending in Pomona. In terms of internal to San Dimas, there's a lot of construction going on. The Bonita Cataract Crossing is temporarily closed from September 13th through September 17th. Bonita will reopen after September 17th, and Cataract Avenue north and south of Bonita will remain closed through June of 2022. Vehicles will still be able to go eastbound on Bonita and turn southbound on Cataract, though, even though there's the closure. This is to allow the construction of the bridge over the Bonita Cataract Crossing, one of our biggest bridge crossings in the city. While frustrating, the traffic configuration changes are necessary to minimize the duration of the closure at this crossing, which could have been as large as 9 months, and we were able to reduce it down to 2 months. There will be a full closure needed to happen again somewhere in around the spring to summer of 2022 timeframe. We'll advise council and the public of that as we get a more definitive date as to when that would occur. The Walnut Avenue crossing remains closed. The contractor is on schedule to open the crossing sometime in the middle of November. The Gold Line is widening southbound San Dimas Avenue just north of Bonita, right by the gas station. They're adding a dedicated right turn lane. And this involves reconstructing the driveways from the Chevron station on the northwest corner of San Dimas Avenue and Bonita Avenue. And so you'll see the activity that's happening over there. Residents may also notice work on the Arrow Highway just east of San Dimas Canyon Road. This part of Arrow Highway is in Laverne, just east of the city limits, but the work involves construction of a water line, which has experienced delays due to material supply issues. And so in terms of the SB 9, I will not do any further regular updates except for what the final determination is on the bill. But we will continue to do gold line updates as necessary, and that ends my report.
Thank you, City Attorney.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the City Council, council members report on meetings attended at the expense of the local agency. Hearing none, we'll go off to San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments update.
You know, as the city manager stated, the governing board has taken a stand against SB 9 and requested that the governor veto it, which I have my doubts very much. And I just put this information in here for you to realize what's happening with the COG.
Thank you. All right, City Council requests for future items, comments, and updates. Ryan? Updates?
Oh, sure.
I thought you were asleep up there.
Huh?
Never mind.
I was looking at the agenda. Yeah, so really quickly, one is I hope everybody got out and voted. It seems like the polls are calling the election as it is. But bottom line is it's important that people get out. I do appreciate the work that staff did and the county and the library with the drop box and everything to be able to make sure that worked out for everybody. Earlier today, the city council had a special session regarding the housing element. And, we got kind of cut short on time to comment on it. But I think the bottom line is, to the people that reached out and, chatted with me, at various places and times, it's important that you pay attention to what's going on here at City Council. And it's important because single-family homes are in jeopardy with a lot of the state legislation that you're seeing. You're seeing a lot of these issues. We're seeing even tonight with the waste management issue that are just going to further complicate the way life is. And so a lot of the community talks about wanting more vibrancy here, wanting more life, but also protecting the character and the quaintness of what we have and not having City Council make decisions that are haphazard or whimsical, in how we decide to place things that maybe would be out of place. I think that staff and the time that I had to watch what occurred with the housing element exercise, as staff outlined and for the public to watch, sometimes you wish you could just go and take all of these meetings that are spread out over time and condense them into a quick story. And if you did that, you would see that the city council and the staff did go through a rather significant exercise to get to the vote that occurred tonight with the housing element. And that significant exercise went through a variety of processes that even, if I recall correctly, Councilman Ebner actually suggested the establishment or supported it with staff for a subcommittee to further bolster public engagement and weighing in on that housing element process. And a consultant was hired, and a lot of time went into it. The Planning Commission weighed into this. So I think that the end result, where we got, I think is outstanding. When you look at the map and you look at the locations that were identified, I think that the city did a good job from the first time that all of the sites, when the city went through, the staff went through the exercise, early on in this and looked at all of the potential places, dwindled that down to the 16 units or 16 sites that it felt were most appropriate to intelligently and reasonably and functionally consider. I think we got to where we needed to be. Doesn't mean that it's done. It's going to be an ongoing process, especially as the city continues to evolve. But there is a balancing act as it relates to the housing element. And, I think staff did a good job in talking about all of that. So in short, I just want to thank all of the members of that subcommittee that did their part, the planning commissioners, the staff, the consultant, and the council ultimately for I think doing something that will help us continue in a direction that will bring people the things that they want in our town. And that specifically the housing element right now in this moment, in this place and space and time, with what's occurring with the mass transportation construction, this was a very important vote on our end of it. And so it's kind of cool to see. And that kind of coincides with even the bus stop discussion this evening, that, we really do have to be thinking ahead. We have to be thinking about homelessness. We have to be thinking about the challenges of tomorrow today. And that includes public safety. That includes, the infrastructure challenges, and that includes the budgetary challenges. So, in summary, I think we're doing a decent job of moving ahead in Henry. I just want to give you a shout out and all of your staff too. I know you guys got pulled a lot of different directions as we went through this exercise. And Jeff, I commend you for thinking through the legal beagle challenges of how to get us through segmenting that discussion. And I also thank you because when I raised the concerns about the legal questions of conflict, and we abruptly paused to what we were doing, I think you thought quickly and ultimately orchestrated what we needed to do well to protect the vote and the council and the city. So thank you very much for that. And lastly, I hope everybody, as everyone knows, the mayor and council saddled me with the duty to represent the city on the mosquito and vector control district. And so if you haven't noticed, the mosquitoes are out and about. And so toss your waters on Thursdays, no stagnant water. Make sure you're applying repellent. And you can also, if you visit my Facebook page, I posted a link to the Bite Back tour that the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District did a Facebook Live session specifically for San Dimas. And that shares a lot of good information and tips on what you can do to help minimize mosquito activity in your part, because believe you me, all of us have a responsibility to do what we need to do. And lastly, the gentleman, I think it was Mr. McSudian, made a comment regarding, looking and thinking through some of these issues as it relates to the public safety pieces and what have you of the policy decisions related to the trees. I think that I hear that concern. I think that the council's decision tonight, I think, is an appropriate one that is supportive of the spirit of the community and the values of the residents, while still acknowledging the concerns as it relates to infrastructure, safety, and quality of life. So, I'm happy to chat with anybody regarding any issue, as always. And, anyone that would like to reach out to me, I'm more than welcome that. I know I don't think I've met everybody up on that block, and I'd be more than happy to chat. So all that being said, I hope everybody has a blessed evening, and it looks like we have a closed session after this, I think. So I think we're almost there.
Thank you. Dennis?
Oh, okay. I'd like to talk about the Pomona Valley Transit Authority for a second. You know, in San Dimas, we have San Dimas Dial a Cab, which everyone is eligible to use, and we have Get About, which is for seniors and disabled people. Unfortunately, we're having a little problem. People are experiencing a little delay in their service because we're having a driver shortage. And I just want you to be aware that we're well aware of that, and we're doing everything we can to recruit drivers, even offering them a bonus just to sign. So if you use Dial a Cab or Get About, leave yourself a little extra time, and we will hopefully solve the problem soon.
Thank you. Eric?
Well, I've only got one thing for you tonight, and that's that I wanted to share with everybody. The San Dimas Rotary Club, the San Dimas Masonic Lodge, and the Diamond Bar Women's Club are teaming together to raise some money for a program that they call Making Spirits Bright, which is a fundraiser to buy gifts for the children of Marines that are stationed at Camp Pendleton and 29 Palms. As everybody's probably aware, 29 Palms is pretty isolated out there in the middle of nowhere, and these kids don't have a lot around them, and having Santa come and bring them some presents on behalf of these organizations raising money is really a great way to brighten up their holiday season. So with that being said, the Patriots hockey team, which is a veterans hockey team that is near and dear to my heart because I play with them, and the LAPD hockey team are going to be doing a charity hockey game on October 23rd. That's a Saturday. And that's going to be following the Ontario Reign versus San Diego Gulls at Toyota Arena in Ontario. So the Reign will play the Gulls, and then afterward, the Patriots will take on LAPD hockey. And tickets are on sale at patriotshockeyprogram.org. $20 to sit in the upper bowl, $28 for the lower bowl, so it's pretty affordable, inexpensive, a good night out, and it's for a good cause. So I just wanted to put that out for everybody. Saturday, October 23rd. Thanks.
John?
Okay, we've got a few updates about SB 9 and SB 10 from various sources. Well, I won't give a big update about it. I always appreciate Sean Casares's keeping that in front of us, and the initiative that he talked about may be the only way to reverse what the legislature and possibly the governor are going to do. However, it's not over yet, and as COG, and there's a lot of groups of all up and down from all political stripes, talking to the governor, emailing him, calling to urge him to veto the bills. I did call, and I'm going to give you the number because it doesn't hurt to call. You know, if you're going to leave an opinion, it's just a voicemail you're going to leave. But if you make a short comment, they do listen to them. The number to call Governor Newsom is 916-445-2841, and just urge him to veto SB 9, SB 10. I'll be emailing next, but do that every 2, 3, 4 days until he does one thing or the other. But that's we would hope he would veto it, but we'll see what happens. The other thing is that as Ryan pointed out, the discussion on the housing element was a little bit rushed this evening. I, of course, took up some time, probably more than the 5 minutes I thought I would take when I had the PowerPoint presentation. But I feel that there might be a little bit more that could have been discussed. And I actually, over the course of all the public input, whether it was the committee, the planning commission, city council, I don't think we really ever heard from staff on their evaluation of some of the sites that were rejected. And I don't want to go over the other, 20 or 32 sites that were in that one on the website out there. But I was wondering if we could ask this be agendized at our next meeting for those 3 properties on Arrow Highway. I'd just like to hear staff's analysis of those, because we didn't hear any analysis except that they thought they were not suitable. And I feel that the city council and the public, for that matter, deserves and would benefit from a little bit of talk about why, what we can do, what the reasoning was, and talking to Chris during the break, he was explaining some things, but, the public and the rest of the council have not heard all of that. So I don't know if we did agendize it next meeting, if for some reason we wanted to add those 3 to the housing element, we still have plenty of time, and because it's due October 15th, our next meeting is September 28th. So I didn't know if there's another person on the city council who would go along with putting that on the agenda.
I'll go along with that.
I appreciate that, Dennis. So that'd be just, so Henry's still on the line there, and I don't know if I see Ken. So it's just basically the analysis for those 3 sites, and I think you probably saw them on that PowerPoint, but I can probably give the addresses or the numbers of the sites in an email. Just the analysis on that, and we can finish out that discussion. It doesn't have to be really long, but I just feel that tonight's discussion was really, really rushed.
You send me an email on those addresses?
Yes, I'll do that too. Okay, so, and lastly, just a comment about that, and I'm not going to go over anything that I didn't say before or add things to it, but I think it's clear, and it's been clear for a long time, that San Dimas needs a bump in the population to create that synergy or the way things work together so that we can have more businesses that more people want to frequent downtown. Now, we also need people to come in the city to, by zoning, help encourage businesses of the types we want and people want to frequent in the downtown. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But I've noticed over the years, and you've noticed I've been talking about vibrant downtowns, revitalizing San Dimas since the mid-90s. So we got a good 25 years of doing that. And there have been a lot of vibrant downtowns that I know about. And they're all the things we would want San Dimas to be, and they don't all have multiple high-rise, high-density projects on the downtown Main Street or on the nearby streets. Nowadays, they are getting a little bit more, but they don't necessarily have to have a feel like you're in some super urban area. And so what I would hope is that as we go through the whole process and the density, the rezoning and everything, that we keep in mind that most people who live in San Dimas want San Dimas to be a place where you can drive or walk downtown and get the feeling you're in that, get that small town feel. And I'd like to retain that, and anything we do with the higher density, which we are going to have, I hope we can, and the bus benches and whatever else we do downtown, keeping the trees going well, that we foster that feeling and not lose sight of that and the surrounding neighborhoods as well. And that's about it for tonight.
Thank you. Just a couple, 2 or 3 things. One is that on September 24th, San Dimas High School is going to have their homecoming parade on Bonita. They normally close the street for about an hour and a half, and it's kind of a running closure, so that it happens pretty quick. And I think the student body there appreciates the fact that the community gets out and supports them. And as you know, it's been a long last 2 years. So I think that I would encourage the council and the community to come out that day. And some people might come out for the first time and see that there is a downtown San Dimas with some shops that they might want to visit, So I think that's a good thing. But staying on the high school, is last Saturday night, I had the opportunity to attend the Smudge Pot game over at Covina District Stadium. Unfortunately, our guys didn't win, so Bonita retained the Smudge Pot. But I'll remind you that Bonita's a much bigger high school, and they definitely had much bigger boys. So they, but our kids played hard, and I don't think a single soul there should be questioning their ability to hang in there and try to make San Dimas proud. So I appreciate that. Received several phone calls concerning the new left turn arrows at Bonita and San Dimas Avenue. Lots of people had asked about them for probably 10 years that I can know of, or even longer. They always wanted that east-west to have that control, and there it's now there, and it's functioning, and people actually appreciate the fact that either the gold line and or the city or conjunction together, it's in there, and I think that it's definitely an improvement to the downtown. One of the things I wanted to say is we all talk about being supportive of the Chamber of Commerce, but we don't seem to, as a group of the council, very few of us make the ribbon cuttings for the businesses. And if we're showing support and telling the business that we support them, I think that we as a council, and I realize certain parts of the council work and certain people have a lot of obligations, but if we could try to make a few of these, I think that the chamber would appreciate it, and I know the businesses appreciate it. So with that all being said, I was contacted. It was strange that Eric talked about the Rotary and the Masonic Lodge. I was contacted recently, and it's just something that I want to float out there. There's no discussion on it at this point. Hopefully, the Rotary guys will contact our Parks and Rec, Mr. Wasserman, as they told, enlightened me and said that 2026 is the birthday of this country, 250 years, and they would like to look at maybe some type of a subcommittee, some kind of a program that maybe we could work with Rotary and the other service organizations to put together a committee, and Parks and Rec kind of work with them and try to do something. So I think the recommendation would be for me to them would be to contact you and see if it's something that the city might want to become involved in, and maybe it's something that it's just too big a process for us. But I think the parks people are the people that need to talk about that. And quite honestly, I told them that they should go through the city manager, who will in turn talk to you. But I just wanted the rest of the council to start thinking about, because I don't know if they've contacted anybody, but they did contact me. Other than that, we have a closed session tonight. It's a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'm not going to get a second, but we're going to close. Good night.